All right. Hello and welcome to our UC-IPM Urban and Communities new invasive species webinar series. My name is Sherry Shook. I am an invasive species educator for UC-IPM. I really want to thank everybody for joining us today. We are very excited today to have Dominique Norton with us today from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Dominique is a senior environmental scientist. She's a specialist that's worked with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's invasive species program since 2007. Dominique is proud to serve California as a civil servant. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dominique.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. I have, as noted, been working in the program since 2007. And my main responsibilities have been to work with our regional scientists on quagga and zebra mussel prevention and control plans. As I'm talking, let me see if I can share my screen. Great. So my main responsibility has been working with our regional scientists to support the development of quagga and zebra mussel prevention and control plans. And more recently, the golden mussel issue has been added to my plate since its discovery in late 2024. Today, I plan to give an overview on the invasive species program within the Department of Fish and Wildlife and ways that you can help to prevent the introduction and further spread of invasive species. So an introduction to the department I work for. I work for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. It's our mission to manage California's diverse fish, wildlife, and plant resources and the habitats upon which they depend for their ecological values and their use and enjoyment by the public. I work in our invasive species program. This is part of our fisheries branch. Our mission as a program is to reduce the negative effects of non-native invasive species on the wildlands and waterways of California. We're involved in efforts to prevent the introduction of these species into the state, detect and respond to introductions when they occur, and prevent the spread of invasive species that have become established. Our project addresses problems with introduced animals and plants, both terrestrial and aquatic. More fundamentally, we try to identify and address the ways by which the species are introduced, typically inadvertently by human activities. The way that these are introduced, we think of them, call them vectors or pathways. Studies show that preventing introductions is the most effective and cost-effective way to manage invasive species. We conduct our work in coordination with other government agencies and non-government organizations. We work closely with national, regional, federal, state, and local agencies to prevent the spread of invasive species. At the national level, via the Aquatic Nuisance Species Task Force and its Western Regional Panel on Aquatic Nuisance Species. At the state level, via the Invasive Species Council of California and its California Invasive Species Advisory Committee, along with the Quagga and Zebra Mussel Interagency Team and Golden Mussel Task Force. And finally, at the local level, via our regional scientists who coordinate with and assist local agencies. Now, the way our program is organized, we have headquarters staff, which I am part of. We set statewide policy and develop regulations, coordinate at the federal and state level, and develop resources for statewide use to encourage program consistency. Headquarters staff responds to a variety of invasive species issues, including control of common invasive species like bullfrogs, coordinate with other states on invasive species concerns like quagga, zebra, and golden mussels, and address reports of restricted species in California. In addition to our headquarters staff, in each of our regions, we have 6 inland regions, we have a dedicated regional environmental scientist that have historically worked on quagga and zebra mussel issues and have recently expanded their focus to include golden mussels. Regional scientists work with the local water managers to develop prevention and control plans and conduct monitoring and outreach and education. Now, what is an invasive species? An invasive species is a species that is not native to the ecosystem under consideration, and those introductions cause or is likely to cause an economic or environmental harm or harm to human health. Many invasive species were introduced unintentionally, hidden in shipments of cargo, hitchhiking on or in boats and ocean-going ships, and or transported with ornamental plants. Invasive species can cause environmental, economic, and human health impacts. They reduce biodiversity, disrupt the food chain, outcompete native species for resources, and change water quality. Dense populations can cause infrastructural impacts by clogging pipes, pumps, fire suppression, and components of water supply systems and hydroelectric power plants. It is estimated that the economic cost in the US is in the billions of dollars annually, and globally, the impact is estimated at over 1 trillion. Invasive species can also impact recreation by damaging watercraft and increasing costs to inspect and decontaminate them. They cause impacts to human health by causing injury and allergic reaction. So you can see on this slide, the picture on the bottom left corner is a 6-inch pipe that has been completely, not totally impacted, but almost completely, the mussels have completely grown. These are quagga mussels down on the Colorado River. They've almost been able to impede the water flow through that pipe. The middle picture in the bottom is a trash rack that was pulled out on the Colorado River. Those are mussels, quagga mussels, completely covering those. Bottom right corner, you can see a clam is attached with golden mussels. The top right picture is of a shoreline. Mussels are all over there, so you can imagine recreating, going out swimming or fishing, and you can cut your feet. And the middle top photo is of a boat propeller. Now, when it comes to federal authorities related to invasive species, there's the National Invasive Species Act of 1996, which amended the Non-Indigenous Aquatic Nuisance Prevention and Control Act of 1990. This directs the Aquatic Nuisance Species Task Force to implement a program in the United States waters to prevent introduction and dispersal of aquatic nuisance species, to monitor, control, and study such species, and to disseminate related information. Currently, there is a federal bill, HR 3717, in the current session that would further amend the Non-Indigenous Aquatic Nuisance Prevention and Control Act of 1990 to establish a demonstration program with respects to golden mussel. There's also the Lacey Act, which is also known as the Injurious Wildlife List. And it's a federal law that prohibits the importation or interstate transport without a permit to prevent harm to human, agriculture, forestry, and native wildlife. Now in California, we have the Fish and Game Code Section 2118, which places restrictions on importation, transportation, possession, or release of a live species into this state, except under a revocable non-transferable permit, which we call the Restricted Species Permit. To support this code section, there is the California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Section 671, which makes it illegal to import, transport, or possess live animals listed in this section. This section is often referred to as the Restricted Species List. Now, since 2007, the department has been conducting a quagga and zebra mussel project. This is nestled under our invasive species program. And we've been working with numerous federal, state, local agencies, along with countless nonprofit stakeholder groups and special interest groups to work together to prevent the spread of quagga and zebra mussels. Now, we have to recognize that all agencies have limitations to their authority and jurisdiction. Thus, there is a massive need for multi-jurisdictional collaborative partnership. In response to the detection of golden mussels in late 2024 near the Port of Stockton, we have expanded our work to cover invasive mussels, inclusive of quagga, zebra, and golden mussels. We coordinate monitoring statewide and have a laboratory that can identify quagga, zebra, and golden mussels genetically, both the veliger, which is the larval form of the species, and adults. We also have our law enforcement division, which has canine teams statewide that are all trained on quagga and zebra mussel scent detection and are also expanding their training to include golden mussels. Because there's a lot of similarities between golden mussel and quagga and zebra mussels, we can take advantage of the existing quagga zebra response work that we've conducted. However, I want to share that the expanded number of waters at risk and the geographic scope and complexity of the Delta and state and federal water projects makes response actions very challenging. A meaningful response requires a significant commitment from all federal, state, and local agencies involved in management of water, watercraft, and wildlife. Now, golden, quagga, and zebra mussels are all very similar in appearance, size, and all cause significant environmental, economic, and public health issues. They all use thistle threads, which you can see in the black and white image towards the middle bottom of the screen. And these are small little threads that allow them to attach to hard surfaces. These mussels grow up to 2 inches in length and all have similar coloring. Quagga and zebra mussels do have striping, where golden mussel don't tend to have any striping. As I mentioned, golden mussels is going to be a bit more challenging to control, in that they can tolerate a much wider range of water quality, making virtually all fresh and brackish water in California at risk. They pose a significant threat to our aquatic natural resources by altering the food web and increasing harmful algal blooms. They threaten California's complex water conveyance system of dams and canals that are relied on for agricultural production, power generation, domestic water supply for over 27 million people, and is a significant driver in California's economy. They can attach to and damage watercraft as well. All 3 species reproduce by releasing eggs and sperm into the water. The eggs develop into larvae, which we call veligers, which are microscopic and found free floating in the water column. After developing a few weeks, the veligers settle out onto surfaces. They're hard to see, but they feel like sandpaper. They prefer to settle on hard surfaces, dark places, cracks, and corners. They grow into adults, which reach a maximum of 1 to 2 inches in length. They start reproducing as early as 3 months, and they reproduce prolifically. This means their population can grow very rapidly once established. There are 2 main ways these mussels spread. First, the larval stage, called veligers, can be carried to new locations on water currents. I noted that they are free floating in the water column, so wherever that water flows, those veligers will be moved. The most common way we see this is downstream spread of mussels along rivers and aqueducts. This type of spread is very difficult to control. The second is through the transportation and transport on watercraft. Adult mussels can attach to the hulls and motors of boats, and when a boat is launched in a new water body, they can establish in that new location. Water from an infested water body can also be transported in the cooling system of the motor or in the bilge of a boat. That water may contain hundreds of veligers that can be introduced into a new water body. This type of spread can be controlled by ensuring watercraft and equipment are clean, drained, and dried after every use. Once a population is established, it is usually permanent. Eradication attempts are expensive and rarely successful. Quagga and zebra mussels are from Ukraine and Russia. They were introduced into the Great Lakes in the late 1980s in the ballast water of a cargo ship. They have become widespread in eastern North America, and in the West, there are a lot fewer locations of quagga and zebra mussels, and this is a result of deliberate effort to prevent the spread in the West. Quagga mussels were initially discovered in Lake Mead in January 2007. That's when I started with the program. And they were likely introduced by watercraft that traveled from the eastern North America. They then spread to Southern California via the Colorado River Aqueduct. They are currently found in Southern California, which is represented by squares. And there's a zebra mussel population in Central California at San Justo Reservoir, which is in San Benito County. And those zebra mussels were found in 2008. but they have not spread elsewhere in California since, as a result of the detection, it's been closed to public access since 2008. And so if you look at the map here, I don't know if my cursor shows, but this point here, so on our eastern border with Arizona, the cluster here is the Colorado River. It runs along our border, and this is where the Colorado River aqueduct, which is a 242-mile aqueduct system which brings water into Southern California. And most of the populations that we've found are as a result of the source water, so the villagers moving through it. Now, prevention and control programs have been developed to prevent the spread of quagga and zebra mussels in California. And since these programs were developed, we've only had 2 instances of spread of mussel by overland transport in California. And that's just south of the Tehachapi's in this area in both Lake Piru and Lake Pyramid. Now, I just wanted to show these pictures, which clearly shows the quick growth of zebra mussels on settlement plates that were deployed in San Justo Reservoir. That's the zebra mussel population in Central California. This is a PVC plate that's put into the reservoir, and you can see the mussel growth over 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and 24 weeks. On October 17th, 2024, the Department of Water Resources, while they were conducting routine water quality monitoring, discovered golden mussels near the port of Stockton in San Joaquin County. This is the first golden mussel discovery in North America. The initial introduction is thought to be from an overseas shipping vessel from the ballast. Similar to quagga and zebra mussels, golden mussels can have rapid growth and dense colonization. They're native to China and Southeast Asia, and their current extent of golden mussels this is the current extent of golden mussels in California. This map is available on our golden mussel webpage. It's updated regularly as new sightings are confirmed, and the version you're seeing today on your screen was current as of yesterday. So I pulled this, well, it says August 20th, but that is because we've had no other detections, and I asked a colleague to add in the Delta Mendota Canal, which is the federal Central Valley project, and the California Aqueduct, which is a state water project. As you can see, they're spreading on water currents through the Delta and down the California Aqueduct. The Department of Water Resources was also able to reanalyze water samples that they had previously collected in 2023 and 2024. And they found golden mussel eDNA as far back as 2023. This means that they've been here since at least then and could have spread during that time they were undetected. This means that while there have been no detections thus far that were clearly caused by overland transport, we don't yet have a clear idea of where they are. Golden mussels were added to Title 14, Section 671, or as we noted, the restricted species list, making it illegal to possess, transport, or import golden mussels in the state. This addition to the restricted species list was made under an emergency action by the Fish and Game Commission in December of last year. A full rulemaking process is currently underway to make this addition permanent. Golden mussels are also being petitioned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to be added to the Lacey Act. Now, similar to the zebra mussel slides that I showed showing growth rates, this is a photo of the same piece of equipment. It's a Department of Water Resource acoustic Doppler current profiler and other instruments that are deployed in the Stockton Deep Water Ship Channel just downstream of Buckley Cove. So on the left photo, this was taken in August of this year, and you can see the photo on the right, which was taken in October 2024. So from October to August, that's how much the mussels have grown on this one piece of equipment. Same equipment, same location, just a matter of time that the golden mussels have completely encrusted this piece of monitoring equipment. I wanted to share briefly how the federal and state water projects operate in California, and also mention a little bit more about the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. So you can see the map on the right, which is depicting the Delta, which is the heart of this massive north to south water delivery system. It includes 1,100 miles of levees, 738 acres, and spans 5 counties. Now, it's important to remember in California, approximately 75% of our total annual precipitation volume occurs north of Sacramento, while 80% of our total water demand is in the south. Precipitation falling as snow in the Sierras and other mountain ranges feeds the network of reservoirs and surface water sources that supply the state. California's interconnected water system of aqueducts and infrastructure projects is the world's largest, serving municipal demands and irrigating over 5.8 million acres of farmland. As you can see, the map on the left is depicting both the federal and state water projects, and you can see that water is moved from Trinity Lake, Shasta Lake in Northern California through the river, and also Lake Oroville, which is a huge impoundment north of Sacramento. That all flows down the river into the Delta and then continues down both the Central Valley Project and State Water Project all the way down to Southern California. While we don't have confirmation yet of everywhere within the system, we're operating under the assumption that golden mussels have most likely spread or will spread throughout the South Delta and southern parts of the state via the state and federal water projects. So pretty much anywhere that receives water from the Delta, we will eventually find golden mussels. The first response action was to form a multi-agency golden mussel task force, which to lead the coordinated response in California. The first meeting was held in November of last year and consists of a steering committee and numerous active teams. April of this year, the task force finalized the golden mussel response framework with the goal to prevent the further spread of golden mussels and minimize their impacts. And this slide lists the objectives of the framework, and the framework is available on our golden mussel webpage. As we saw in the golden mussel distribution map, they're already spreading with water movement through the Southern Delta and via the state and federal water projects, up through the Sacramento River into the Southern California reservoirs. We know that there are an unknown number of moored vessels in the Delta that have the potential to transport adult mussels further north in the system through various parts of the Delta and up the Sacramento River. We also know from our years of experience with quagga and zebra mussels that recreational watercraft is a major vector or pathway as mussels can spread over land and be transported between water bodies on watercraft. This map visually represents the movement of watercraft from the Delta throughout the West that are intercepted by agencies that participate in the watercraft inspection and decontamination data sharing system. The actual movement of watercraft from the Delta to other waters is much higher than what's shown here. So these are locations that are participating in this data sharing system and have intercepted watercraft that had originated from the Delta. To date, we're aware of 4 golden mussel infested watercraft that originated from the Delta that were intercepted at Folsom Lake, Lake Berryessa, Lake Tahoe, and Thermalito Forebay during pre-launch inspections. So before the boat was allowed to launch in those locations, they underwent an inspection and the golden mussels were found, and all of those watercraft had originated from the Delta. And this is exactly why the department encourages prevention programs at water bodies statewide to protect resources and infrastructure. The department encourages local agencies to conduct early detection monitoring, implement watercraft inspection programs, and conduct outreach and education. I hope by now you can appreciate how containment of golden mussels in the Delta presents a really significant challenge. We're now going to shift gears, discuss a number of other invasive species issues. Another role of the invasive species program is to identify invasive species population for control and eradication, when feasible, and to facilitate and assist these efforts. For example, we have the Nutria eradication project, which has been working to remove these snakes from the Roseville and Folsom area. From 2015 through 2019, we've removed 110 snakes from Roseville and have not captured anything from 2020 through 2025. We believe this to be a successfully eradicated population. Now in the Folsom location, we have removed a total of 182 snakes since 2017 and we're still actively catching them. And we've actually expanded our trapping area to cover more habitat. It's important to eradicate these snakes from waterways in Sacramento and Placer counties to prevent spread into Central Valley. These snakes prey on juvenile salmonoids, including Chinook, coho, and steelhead, Delta smelt, Sacramento splittail, foothills, yellow-legged frog, California's tiger salamanders, which are all listed species, and compete with giant and San Francisco garter snakes, which are listed. They were likely introduced into both locations by a pet owner. Now, nutria is a large aquatic rodent from South America, which is invading waters from San Joaquin County to King County. They destroy wetland vegetation and could damage levees. The department has led a statewide eradication project since 2018 and have taken 6,590 nutria plus another 8,000 fetal nutria. This heat map shows the locations and relative densities of where those nutria were taken across all years, with the red dots showing discrete locations of take and the shading representing relative density, with blue being the lowest density, increasing to red shading, representing moderate density, and yellow being the densest concentrations. There are a lot of efforts throughout the state that are focused on aquatic plant control and eradication. I want to highlight the eradication efforts occurring in Southern California for Caulerpa prolifera, which were detected in March 2021 in Newport Bay and in September 2023 in San Diego Bay. The photo in the bottom right corner is a picture of the Caulerpa prolifera. Federal, state, and local agencies immediately joined forces to identify the extent of the algae's infestation. Caulerpa can grow very quickly, choking out native seaweed and potentially harming marine life through lost habitat. In the year 2000, a close relative of Caulerpa prolifera called Prolifera taxifolia was found in 2 Southern California lagoons. The seriousness and acknowledged threat of the situation prompted an effective, highly successful eradication project. This eradication took 6 years at a cost of more than $7 million. Although lengthy and expensive, the successful eradication led to the recovery of critically important eelgrass habitat and helped to protect California's coastal ecosystems. The other plant I wanted to mention was the South America sponge plant, which is the photo at the top right corner. This is a perennial aquatic plant found in the San Joaquin River and the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. It forms thick mats across water, which blocks navigation, fish, and water conveyance. Control and eradication methods to address aquatic plants include physical removal, for example, using hand removal, dredging, or containment barriers, or the use of chemical treatment using various chemicals, of course, following all state and federal laws. We're going to move on to talk about a few invasive invertebrate species. Non-native aquatic snails can damage agricultural crops, compete with native snails for food and habitat, clog water intakes, act as intermediate hosts for parasites, and degrade the aesthetics of the environment, which means in that right picture, those really gross egg masses that form above the water. For example, the New Zealand mud snail, which you can see in the photo on the top left corner with the dime, for reference of their size, they're very tiny aquatic snails that reach on average up to 4 to 6 millimeters long. Dense populations become the dominant microinvertebrate through displacing and outcompeting native species. New Zealand mud snails are found on a wide variety of substrates and vegetation in fresh and brackish lakes, rivers, streams, and estuaries. Many U.S. waters remain uninvaded and are still vulnerable to the introduction and establishment of New Zealand mud snails. For the protection of these waters, it is critical to continue prevention, containment, and control efforts. The channeled apple snail, which is the photo on the far right, are very large freshwater snails that grow to over 3 inches in length. Channeled apple snails have been in California since at least 1997 and are now present in Contra Costa, Riverside, San Diego, Los Angeles, and Kern counties. They occur in lakes, ponds, rivers, ditches, wetlands, and agricultural areas such as rice and taro fields. If their distribution increases in California, they could threaten rice crops in the Central Valley and impact wetlands and other freshwater ecosystems by modifying plant community structures and nutrient cycling, and may also compete with native snails and other invertebrates for food and space. And the snail in the middle photo is the Chinese mystery snail. It's an invasive freshwater aquatic snail native to Southeast Asia and Eastern Russia. Once they become established in an ecosystem, this invader effortlessly outcompetes native mollusks and filter feeders for food and habitat. And their high filtration rate displayed when feeding can lead to water quality issues. By closing and opening their shell, these mussels can survive out of water for up to 4 weeks. Control of these also include hand removal, and it's very important to do preventative measures like the gentleman in the photo here where you're washing your equipment, anything that can come into contact with the water source that you're in so that we don't spread them any further. I'm going to discuss amphibians and reptiles next. We've got the red-eared slider, which is the photo on the right, and the American bullfrog photo on the left, 2 photos on the left. They've both been introduced throughout California. They outcompete native species for food and habitat. Large-scale eradications are not feasible for these species due to their distribution, but we're currently developing localized control measures for landowners. The red-eared sliders were originally and continue to be introduced to new areas primarily through domestic and international pet trade. The American bullfrog were intentionally introduced into the Western United States as a food source and for biological control for insects. It may have accidentally been introduced in some areas during fish stocking. We're going to shift gears a little bit more to talk about actions you can take, we all can take, to help prevent the introduction and limit the further spread of invasive species. So many of you may be gardeners. I understand a number of you are likely master gardeners, or a gardener like me who just likes to pet around in the yard. And most of the plants that we use in our garden and landscaping don't invade or harm our wildland areas, but a few species escape into wild landscapes and become a problem. When an aggressive plant is introduced into a new environment, the factors that would normally limit their growth in their native range may not be present. This allows them to proliferate, spread, and take over ecosystems. Invasive plants are non-native, can spread on their own and cause or are likely to cause environmental and economic harm. A few resources that I came across that could help provide some direction on how to replace some of your species that you might have in your garden, or if you're considering to plant new species, you can look at the Plant Right and the California Invasive Plant Council. They have resources that can be utilized for both aquatic and terrestrial gardens. And Palipsy also has some resources about weed-free products. So looking at dirt or other materials that you bring in for landscaping so that you don't inadvertently introduce plants in that way. Now, for aquarium and pet owners, it is vital that we remember to never discard aquarium or pond water, animals, and plants into the environment. We also encourage you to not build ponds along waterways in case the pond fails and it could introduce those species into the natural waterways. Instead of releasing an unwanted pet into the wild, please explore the options listed on this slide. Since releasing a pet can disrupt the native animal population by hunting and introduction of disease and competition for food, nests, or den sites. Habitatitude and Don't Let It Loose are nationwide campaigns promoting responsible pet ownership and providing resources to rehome your pet. There are a lot of resources out there for outdoor recreation enthusiasts as well. We have the Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers campaign, which is a call to action that empowers recreational users of aquatic resources in the United States and other countries to help stop the spread of harmful aquatic invasive species through outreach and partnerships. The Department of Fish and Wildlife encourages all boaters to clean, drain, and dry their boats and trailers. Any equipment or parts of the boat or trailer that have come into the contact with the water could be contaminated and spread invasive species that way. We have the Play Clean Go campaign, which suggests the following steps to to keep the adventure, stop invasive species in your tracks. By removing plants, animals, and mud from boots, gears, pets, and vehicles, cleaning your gear before entering and leaving the recreation site, staying on designated roads and trails, and using certified or local firewood and hay. There's also the National Don't Move Firewood campaign, and I've included the link to these resources here. Actions everyone can take. Well, we can all participate in our annual Invasive Species Action Week. This is always held in the first week of June, and this next year will be our 13th annual Invasive Species Action Week. It is an opportunity to support invasive species efforts like invasive plant removal, and there's also a youth poster contest as part of the efforts. Information can be found on our invasive species webpage. And if you ever observe a species you suspect to be invasive, I highly encourage you to please report it via our website, our email, or our phone number. The Department of Fish and Wildlife cannot unilaterally solve invasive species issues. I encourage each and every one of you to support our efforts by doing what you can to prevent the spread of invasives. I appreciate your time, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Dominique. That was very, very informative. I was scribbling some notes as you were talking.